In this video, we're going to do a deep dive into the design of the new Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. This is probably the shoe I've been most excited for this year, as I've loved the previous versions of the shoe, having run most of my PBs in the Endorphin Pro 1 and 2 respectively. I'm quite fortunate enough to have a wide selection of plated shoes. But my preference for race day has lied in the Endorphin Pro, as I just feel fastest and most smooth in the shoe. I really appreciate Saucony's approach to updating their models. They don't just senselessly update something about a shoe that's been working until they've found something better. That's why on version 1 and 2 of the shoe they were much of the same, the only difference was the upper. But come version 3, they've found good reason to completely overhaul the design on the shoe. So what's new about the shoe? Well, to start with, it has a 4mm higher stack height, as well as a wider cushioning bed, all while being 9mm lighter. And its cushioning is also notably softer than before. As I said, version 1 and 2 of the shoe were quite a lot firmer than other super shoes on the market. And they also were 36mm in stack height at the heel. So they didn't fully make use of that 40mm stack height limit that, of course, World Athletics sets as the maximum amount of cushioning you can have for a road racing shoe. Now, version 3 of the shoe maximizes the stack height by closing in at 39.5mm, and it also has a softer cushioning bed. So overall, this makes the shoe a little bit more Vaporfly-ish in design. We know that the big global sporting brands that are Nike and Adidas have much bigger marketing budgets to play with compared with a running specialty brand that is Saucony. This means that by default they'll have a bigger athlete roster and bigger talent pool to wear and represent their shoes in, which also by default means that they're going to be more record set and more podium set in their shoes than other brands. And I think this will mean that the Saucony Endorphin Pro will be underrepresented in terms of how amazing a shoe it is. Speaking of amazing, the midsole magic that is Power Run PB is now less dense and less pelleted, so less beaded than before. This makes the shoe soft underfoot without making it squishy, which I'm grateful for. The previous models were up there as the most stable carbon plated shoes on the market. But when you make a shoe softer, you inevitably lose some of that. But the new model has a wider base of support, which helps it retain some properties. But if anyone tells you that a carbon plated shoe is a stability shoe, they are misconstruing the truth. You can get a more stable shoe, but it's by no means the most supportive type of running shoe you can find on shelf. The upper on the shoe screams race day all over it. It's got an old school air mesh that keeps your feet cool. When I mean cool, I mean cool. On a cold day, your feet are gonna get cold, and on a rainy day, your feet are gonna get wet. A lot of buzz is placed around breathability, as many years ago, a couple studies showed that if your feet increase in temperature beyond a certain point, your running economy dips. So this is basically quite an intuitive concept that means you don't want your feet getting too warm on a race day, and they won't in the Endorphin Pro 3. Aesthetically, the upper gives the shoe its personality. This is by far my favorite colorway. The lead colorway in pink is an acquired taste, but hey, if you're gonna get a Lamborghini, you might as well get a colorful one. The upper's got these reflective, glittery overlays which are unique and I think are awesome. And then there's even some attention to detail paid on the tongue. There's 3 holes which represent the 3 boulders on the Saucony Creek logo. In terms of the midsole, there's 2 cutouts where you can actually play with the carbon plate, which, excuse the pun, is a really nice touch. And then at the heel counter, there's a suede lining at the back here, which pays homage to the older shoes that Saucony developed that were made from suede uppers. All in all, aesthetically, the shoe is super strong. In terms of sizing, the shoe is true to size with regards to length. It's a bit more accommodating at the toe box compared with the previous models, which were a bit more slim at the toe box. The shoe is still that racy fit that I'm looking for, my slim foot, but it just opens up the sizing in terms of width to a wider range of audience, especially that slightly broader foot that struggles to fit in some of the racing shoes on the market. In terms of the outsole, this is another big W for Saucony. They've gone with a generous rubber outsole coverage, and they've also made this rubber quite soft. So if you make the rubber firm, you can actually feel it from bottom up, but this is soft. One of the strengths from the previous models were that they had a generous rubber outsole coverage, as a lot of runners still would like sort of rubber in the key wear areas so that the shoe doesn't lose out on durability, as you are running pretty fast and pretty hard in these shoes. So this is the strength, especially compared with some of the shoes' counterparts that do lack rubber in key areas. So Saucony have balanced performance meet practicality quite nicely. And then the shoe grips nicely. Super shoes are notoriously bad at cornering and also aren't known to be too grippy in especially wet conditions. But on both accounts, the Endorphin Pro 3 has performed very nicely for me, or from my experience. So that wraps up this review on the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. Stay tuned for my 100-mile review of the shoe, which I'll put out as soon as I get these to eat up some more tarmac. But until then, subscribe to my channel. I've got a bunch of shoes to review for you, and we'll chat again soon. Cheers.